So before we get started, this video is going to be absolutely littered with spoilers.
Yes.
We're not holding anything back, so be warned now.
No holds barred.
But we need to address something that's been floating around. Yes, Jason Reitman confirmed Ghostbusters 2 is still canon. Wow.
Shut up! You don't think Ryan is famous?
Cousin Ryan.
You gotta...
Hey, what's up, YouTube friends and family? It's Cousin Ryan.
It's PJ.
And Ghostbusters Afterlife has been out for, what, a week now?
Yeah.
Almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Almost 2 weeks.
That's
what?
crazy, I know.
Wow, after 32 years. But we got to give our spoiler review here. First off, did you like it?
I loved it.
I loved it too. I really loved it.
I had great expectations. Sorry, Ernest Hemingway. And they exceeded them.
Yeah.
They exceeded
them. I had extremely high expectations, and I feel like they met them. And we'll get into why.
They did.
I'm not super... Oh, man, I'm so excited about this movie.
Yeah.
But there were a few things they left out that can be, included in future movies that
Totally.
I'm like, oh, I wanted to know.
Totally. Things I appreciated. I thought Paul Rudd casting was great.
Yeah, let's talk about the casting
I thought he was
first off.
perfect.
Yeah.
I thought Paul Rudd was excellent in the role that he gave. It reminded me of what the Ghostbusters would have been today.
Correct.
Just as his how he acted.
And I'm hoping that they use his character to be one of the mentors for the kids moving forward. Because you can't include Paul Rudd without the intention of him suiting up at some point.
All the kids were great.
The kids were excellent.
Podcast was my guy.
Podcast was
He was
hilarious.
so funny.
And he pulled it off because he's one of those kids that kid could be obnoxious.
Oh,
except he wasn't.
totally.
He was funny.
Totally. He was very endearing. You loved him even though
so.
he was out of bounds sometimes.
And the chemistry he had with McKenna Grace that plays Phoebe.
She was great, too.
She was excellent.
She looked exactly like what you would picture Egon's granddaughter to look like.
Correct.
So good.
And they did a really good job of... So I have a very good friend of mine who has a son that is autistic.
Uh-huh.
And she had texted me after seeing it. And she said they did such an amazing job of placing Phoebe on the spectrum without saying, hey, she's on the spectrum.
Totally.
And she was such... Oh my gosh, she was such a good character.
Super smart. Unique. It was really good.
The friendship that developed between her and Podcast, and it was so natural and so
cute,
it was it was perfect. Romantically, Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon that plays the mom.
Yeah, that was good. They did that well.
They did it really well, and I
did that well.
I got to be honest, and I know my friend Sally at work accuses me of having a crush on everyone, but I've kind of got a crush on Carrie Coon now, man. She was really, I really liked her.
She played her role well. I thought. She did. And I thought Trevor was great too.
Trevor was great.
He
was
a great teenage boy.
Celeste O'Connor played Lucky, who was sort of Trevor's love interest, but
that was really.
They didn't quite delve into it.
No,
yet.
not at all.
Yeah,
that was great.
No, it left something for the future.
It was great. The whole cast, the chemistry was great. I thought.
Agreed.
And let's be honest, wasn't it amazing to see the Ghostbusters at the end too?
It was. So okay, let's get into that part now.
So good. It was so good. So the thing I loved about that, friends, was that there's this fear in these that for people like myself and Cousin Ryan, we want the nostalgia, you want the nostalgia, but they did a great job of kind of making a newer story, but still delving back into the older story. And it wasn't halfway through the movie, the OG Ghostbusters come and save the day.
Right.
It was perfect.
Right.
They waited till kind of toward the very end.
Yeah.
Classic Peter Venkman line. Even Dan Aykroyd before and his talking about Egon was great.
Correct. Let's back up before we'll talk about the end again. So I think most of you know the premise of the movie. Egon passes away, which
that was hard for me.
They showed and implied at the same time his death.
Yeah.
And there was some debate on did either Zool or Vince Clortho, the two terror dogs, one of them kill him? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say he sacrificed himself to prevent being...
That was your theory.
Yeah, that he took... Because the PKE meter now has a little, taser switch on the back of it, and I think he shocked himself, so he couldn't be possessed and be taken back to Gozer's temple. Very cool, though, to kind of signify that he had passed. The PKE meter's dropped on the floor, and it slides, it slid underneath his chair. And after he dies, you see the wings light up and open.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I was like, oh wow, that was such a great way of doing it. Yeah. And throughout the whole movie, he's present. Egon is present, communicating with McKenna Grace's character, Phoebe.
Yep.
You know, kind of teaching her the way, showing her the equipment, different things. I thought that was a really cool, and that caught me totally off guard. Like I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, them playing chess, I thought was really
cute.
They
played chess. That was how they kind of like, and she even says, she's like, wow, this is happening. You know, when the chess pieces are moving themselves.
And then like the way that he as the ghost would do stuff, and she would talk to him like, "How'd you get so smart?" That part.
And then the light pans over to By the way, when that light pans over to his credentials on the wall, on the shelf just below, is the Geiger meter from Ghostbusters 2, the one that's got the little swirly lights and the two little. It's laying there. That was one of the Easter eggs that was hidden.
So good.
I can't wait to get this movie on Blu-ray to just freeze frame all the shots around his lab because there's stuff hidden everywhere.
Oh yeah, that you just didn't see.
A few people online have claimed they saw the joystick, the NES Advantage that they used to control the Statue of Liberty. I've seen the movie 3 times now. I couldn't find it yet. I saw it sitting there on the second watch only because at the very end of the first watch, you see Lucky put on the helmet, kind of the colander thing with all the little circuits that Louis Tully wore in the first movie.
That was cool.
Yeah. Okay. So.
By the way, the Annie Potts part, I thought
Annie Potts is great.
The fronts was
Annie
great.
Potts is amazing.
I missed Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis didn't show up, but when we get to the post-credit scene, I'm going to tell you, I've got a theory about that as well.
I bet he will, though.
Can we talk about some things that bugged me a little bit?
We totally can. Yeah. Okay. I mean, is there a perfect movie out there?
Hold on, let's not get to.
I don't know. So
we're going to bounce around with this review because I thought of one other thing I wanted to bring up that totally shocked me. Phoebe and her brother and their friend get arrested. Her one phone call is to the phone number left on the original commercials she saw on YouTube. Of course, Ray Stantz answers, and she asks about Egon Spengler. And what does Ray say?
Oh, yeah.
Egon Spengler can rot in hell. And I went, what?
Yeah, it was like he's dead to me. I was like, whoa.
How could that be? Like, that was such an interesting... Like,
I like how they took that twist.
I bought into that twist immediately.
I like how they took that twist. That was really good. I agree with you.
And then, she explains that he died. And he was like, oh, man, you could tell he was distraught about it. But...
Yeah, that's true.
So the whole idea is that Egon started getting kind of...
crazy.
He started going crazy.
He started going...
And started telling people that, their ghost problems were no big deal. There was something bigger coming. And it sort of ran the ghost busting business into the ground.
Right.
And
then he took everything.
Like
everything.
My only
moved
problem...
to rural Oklahoma.
Right, well, rural Oklahoma, because that's where Ivo Shandor's mine was.
Right.
So he knew something was coming. But the fact that they set it up so the other 3 Ghostbusters didn't believe him enough to go with him, unless he just upset him with his... Because I was going to say Aykroyd. Ray Stantz says, he started getting spooky, freaked me out. So just that alone, like, what did Egon do that was spooky that freaked Ray out enough to, like, sever their friendship? Well, and I think Egon's choice to run off with all the equipment...
I think that was probably
was part of it. But...
The nail in the coffin, if you will.
That's nice, man. I see what you did.
You like
there.
that?
But why didn't they believe him, though? He was never...
Yeah, he wasn't.
He never showed himself as an untrustworthy scientist. He was probably the most grounded in science out of the whole group. But the one part that makes me struggle with believing Ray wouldn't believe what Egon was talking about, Revelation 6:12.
Oh, right.
Egon had spray painted Revelation 6:12 from the Bible on the entrance to the farm.
Yeah,
that's spray
right.
Painted
He did.
And Ray has it tattooed on his forearm. They had that link there together.
They did.
So Ray had some sort of belief in Revelation 6:12.
Right.
Egon had the same belief. Why was there still a rift then?
So my thought would be that, I mean, again, it's all speculative, but my thought on that would be that maybe he was so blinded by the stuff that happened before that it was like, don't confuse me with your facts, Egon. Like, my mind's made up. Like, I'm so focused and blinded on what you did and this other stuff and losing our business that even though, like, the tea leaves, reading them all point to what you're saying, I just can't do it.
Right.
Right.
But did Egon take all the stuff and just dip out because they didn't believe him, or did they stop believing him because he went crazy and took all their stuff?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
It could be both.
in that same
obviously
conversation,
they lost faith in Egon.
They
and
did.
Egon
They
then
did.
lost faith in them, and he took
Sure.
matters into his own hands.
Right, and he
to
was
save
right,
the
though.
world.
And he was right.
He was right.
So in that same phone conversation, and oh man, my fellow nerds online have hung on to this little bit way too much. When Ray says, "Oh, we lost the firehouse and it's now a Starbucks."
That was an awesome line, by the way.
You know what would have been better though?
In my opinion. Go ahead. You go
If
first.
he'd have said, "We lost the firehouse and it's a Spirit Halloween now."
That would have been better.
Right? I mean, especially with the Ghostbusting community and everybody buying Ghostbuster stuff. Anyway, I think that would have landed more.
I would have really liked if at the end of the movie, when they were playing the original Ghostbusters song, and they had them crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, I think, and I would have loved to see them drive by the Starbucks.
Oh, yeah.
You know? That would have been cool.
But to that effect, so you see the firehouse at the end, and that's where my fellow nerds have gotten all up in arms that the firehouse was never a Starbucks. Why did Ray say that? Is it a continuity error? Is it all this other? It was a flip joke, man. And I even made that comment. They're like, well, Ray wouldn't joke about that. Yeah, everything becomes a Starbucks when it closed. Like, you know, the bank. How many buildings in town have closed and Starbucks has swooped in?
So
absolutely. That's I think funny. It was just a comment.
I guess we'll see in the next one, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
I hope so, too.
So one other problem I have.
Hopefully it's not 30 years later.
No, I hope not. I'm predicting summer 2023.
I can see that.
For the next one.
Continue.
The pole. So there's a pole that slides down into Egon's lab. And this is silly. Okay, now I'm going to out myself as a real nerd. Both McKenna Grace and Carrie Coon follow the PKE meter. You know, Egon's guiding them into the basement. They open this rickety old shed, and there's a pole. And they just slide down it. They don't even look or anything. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, you think you'd at least shake it. You think you'd look down there.
Yeah,
I agree.
How far down does it go? You know.
I agree. That was a little too. I mean, the nostalgia was nice, and I think they probably just said people will be paying attention to that. But I agree with you. They should have done more detail. In addition, and maybe you're going to say this, because I think we talked about this earlier. I also had a problem, and I think that you would agree as well, that like the OG Ghostbusters just show up
randomly in the final battle.
Can we just at least know can we
how they got there? Who got them there?
Can we have 6 minutes extra that told us can we at least have a conversation of how Ray convinced Peter and Winston? And come on.
That alone to me brings up the whole other point that I didn't get what I wanted in this movie. I wanted an answer to, is the Ectomobile Ecto-1 and Ecto-1A, or is both of them, are both of them the same vehicle? And Ecto-1A was, and I think this movie still lends credence to the idea they're two separate cars, because everybody's like, well, they just put it back to, why would they remove every single trace of the 1A? There would have been something left on that car.
I would love to see in the next one if they could, sometimes in movies they'll start backwards. Mm-hmm. If they could start back with just at least how those OG Ghostbusters got back together, and then 2 years later, just give us some closure there. As just a general fan, but other than that,
I did love how they just showed up. I never, and again, this is just, and maybe it's because I knew we as the good guys were going to win.
Right.
I never felt that Gozer was quite the threat this time around.
So do you think that though is because you were 9 when you saw Ghostbusters 2 for the first time, or were you actually is that a legit? And I'm just asking the question.
I don't know. Maybe my film watching. Well, I'm sure it has been a little jaded over the years, just because they're not going to lose. What?
Right. I think I agree with you. She wasn't quite as formidable. I mean, they did do the ones when they crossed over and it didn't work, and then and then the tear-jerkiest part of the entire film happened.
Before that part though, when they were crossing the streams, it was just okay, we're going to cross the streams here. That's just what we do.
Oh yeah,
that's wasn't the whole. But maybe they learned the first time that it could be bad. It wasn't bad.
I did appreciate the Field of Dreams walk through the corn to get to the house. That was kind of pretty cool.
Okay, so the tear jerky part.
Oh, dude. And here's the thing, as a dad, I loved it.
It
tugged
feels,
the heart,
man.
Big time. My eyes got totally dusty.
The Ghostbusters get dispatched by Gozer, thrown up against the Ectomobile, and McKenna Grace picks up Egon's proton pack, and she's fires at Gozer, and Gozer fires back, and she's getting pushed back. And I don't know if you noticed, the music even
Yes.
goes down really quiet,
Yep.
and the camera starts to pan around her, and you see two ghostly hands like helping her hold it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I seeing?
And they did a great job
Yeah.
of making him look of making
appropriate.
Yeah, appropriately.
They made him appropriately
Making him old,
aged. Like
age
they
well.
very, very respectful. I gotta tell you,
dude.
just real quick. I know this is bouncing all over the place, but it's just so much excitement. Somebody said online today, and somebody else like backed it up when Egon hugs his. And that reminds me that my favorite line of dialogue in the movie. But when she hugs him at the end, because they're estranged, she's estranged from her father.
When he hugs
Egon
his daughter,
and and then he kind of like evaporates into some starry mystic
dust.
Somebody said when it floats up into the sky, it forms the Ghostbuster logo. I
gotta go back.
I know, man. Like I want to see now. And somebody else said yes, absolutely, that's what happened.
I gotta go back. That would be awesome. And it was cool, like Peter Venkman's classic lines. Did you miss us? You know, we could have been the world's best power couple when he talks to.
Yeah.
That was just so good. And then he's like,
Dan Aykroyd and Podcast have some great dialogue.
They do.
Where Podcast has a podcast, and he says, he tells Dan Aykroyd, you should be on my podcast. Oh, what's it called, son? And he says mystical something of the unknown universe, and Dan Aykroyd does the acronym thing. Oh, you're WWW.
Yeah.
And Podcast, you're my subscriber? Yeah. Like, it was the perfect, like, I would love to see those two together more.
And Peter Venkman goes about, we're going to have hot cocoa in there. Some of us will have rum.
And show us that conversation. Yeah. I was like, I couldn't wait to see him sitting around a farm table and him kind of telling maybe some old stories. That would have been a nice end credit. Yeah.
You know, like...
My favorite dialogue in the whole movie, though, and it was a little bit heart-wrenching, was when Phoebe said, told her mom, why didn't you tell me my grandfather was Egon Spangler? And they go back and forth, and
that part was hard.
And she says, I was a scientist, and the mom comes back, and Phoebe says, but he wasn't crazy. And the mom looks at her and says, well, then he was an asshole. And I was like, oh man, because I could feel both sides of that argument.
Oh, sure.
Like Carrie Coon's character was definitely hurt by what her father did.
It wasn't until they went to the pit, right? And then
she saw Egon guided her through his lab and shined the light on this whole wall he had of pictures of her.
Right. Well, and even remember when the kids were in the pit, not Carrie Coon, but when the kids were in the pit, and then you saw the proton packs were basically keeping the...
Mm-hmm. Oh, the actual... Yeah, that's right. Huh. That was cool. Because just briefly,
awesome.
what triggered the proton guns, the proton packs to shoot at the pits of hell coming up
the
through
goo
this,
or whatever that was.
He had a PKE meter rigged to some servos, so when the wings went up on it, when the evil spirits would rise through the PKE meter would sense it, and when the wings went up, the wings would trigger the servos for the proton guns.
The earthquakes in Oklahoma.
Right.
I also love the part too, when Paul Rudd they open up the pack and the ghost comes out, and he's like, that part was so funny.
Where he says, they're like, you're an adult. And he's like, yeah, and I'm liable.
Yeah, I gotta go.
We gotta get out of here.
Good. If there were 5 stars, I'd give it 4.
Would you? I'm gonna give it. Okay, so here before we get to the credit, because I want to talk about the after the credit stuff too. This movie is not Ghostbusters 3. It's not.
No, not at all.
It's not. It's a third Ghostbuster movie,
right.
But it is not Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah. It's part of the Ghostbusters franchise, right?
Right. And after you see this, or if you've already seen it, maybe you agree with me, or if you don't, let me know. It's the third movie, but it's not part 3. I understand why they didn't call it Ghostbusters 3.
Totally agree.
It makes total sense.
Totally agree.
I was disappointed at the start because they didn't play the original theme song. I thought when Egon died, that would have been a good...
Yeah.
They didn't play it until the very end of the movie, after Gozer was defeated, and you see the Ecto going across the Brooklyn Bridge back into New York.
They're back in business.
Then the theme song starts, and you're like, okay, now the adventure begins anew again. Like, I get why, and I'm glad Jason Reitman made the choice to save that song for the very end, because now it's like the adventure starts.
And then you wonder if the next one, will all those kids then move to the city, right?
Right. Well, maybe. I kind of expected the farm to be destroyed in that battle. I don't know why I thought that, but by the way, the sets were amazing.
Oh, they were. Would you buy that farm afterward? I don't know if I would.
I think they tore it down. It was built strictly for the movie. That
no,
was 100%.
I'm saying like in the sense of like if you were in that setting.
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
everything's fine
yeah.
now. I don't know if I buy that phone.
I don't know, man. I hope they kept it. I can see him going back again.
I don't know if I buy that
Muncher
phone.
was a great ghost.
Oh, he was, yeah.
I totally forgot that.
That was a great one.
Jason Reitman also explained, because a lot of fans were saying, well, how come we didn't get Slimer?
Oh,
he was like,
sure.
Slimer's a New York ghost. There's ghosts all over the place. We're in Oklahoma. Muncher's an Oklahoma ghost.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah, we get to explore and experience ghosts from other parts.
See, I like that. That means that means there's longevity in the series. It wasn't just trying to be a money grab for Ghostbusters.
Right, because there was plenty of nostalgia in it, too.
Oh,
Don't get me wrong. I mean, and that's another complaint, that there was too much fan service, but I look at it like fans, us, we're paying for this stuff. Give us what we want.
Didn't you say the ghost with the eye in it? That's from...
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
This ghost makes an appearance.
Yeah, it does.
He pops out of, like, his eyeball pops out of a building. Whoops.
And that's from the cartoon, right?
I don't think this was in the cartoon. This is from the cartoon toy line.
The cartoon
toy line
toys.
had a ton of ghosts that never made it in the cartoon.
That's right.
But the eyeball, like, pops out of a wall, and then the ghost catches up to it and, like, flies.
And there was even some video game stuff in there, too, right? That they had some...
You know...
I thought you said something with Winston, right? Wasn't there something
with the cartoon. With the cartoon.
The cartoon, yeah.
So, Winston, after the battle's over, he walks over to Ecto, and he, like, looks at, well, you know, what have they done to you? Because, obviously, Ecto's been neglected.
He says they're going to fix it up, though, so...
The Ecto was Winston's baby in the cartoon. Like, that was his car.
Makes
you know,
sense.
he drove a lot. He took care of it. So I think it's cool that they kind of threw that nod into it.
I was impressed.
And at the very end, the very final post-credit scene, you know, he's talking to Janine, Annie Potts, and kind of just explaining, you know, even though I'm a successful businessman now, I'll always be a Ghostbuster. And it shows him walking into the interior of the firehouse, and then the doors open, and the Ecto-1 drives in. But we don't see who drove it in. I'm going to tell you, in that conversation with her, he says, I started this business with one employee.
Oh, you think?
And smiles. Hold on. There's two possibilities here. He could be stating the obvious. Like, let's say I started a business with you, and 30 years from now, I'm like, dude, I started, you know, this business with one employee.
Right.
Meaning you.
Right.
He could have been saying that to Annie Potts. Like, maybe Janine was a secretary or whatever.
Sure.
Or Louis Tully, Rick Moranis. Maybe that was his first employee.
That would be amazing.
And maybe that was him driving the car back in. I don't know.
That would be amazing.
We can't quite tell who was driving, but it was somebody with shorter hair.
And the Sigourney Weaver was nice.
Oh, and the Sigourney,
her,
so the mid-credit scene was Sigourney Weaver. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this to you the other day. Somebody said, and I haven't seen it yet, but in the credits, her character's listed as Dana Barrett Venkman.
That's awesome.
So Peter and Dana did get together. They are married. I think that's
cool.
Awesome. Didn't get to see her son Oscar anywhere in the movie though, which, I mean,
he'd be our age. Well, a little younger.
Yeah, because he'd be like 32-ish, I think. Yeah.
That'd be awesome. That was very good.
I've really, even with my criticism though, I absolutely loved it. I loved the mini puffs, the mini Stay Puffs. Like, those were fun. There was totally no point in them other than they were just fun entertainment. There was no relevance to the story.
They did the T2
really,
reference in there.
Yeah. When
cool.
one of them melts into the... Apparently that scene had like all kinds of references in it, but one of them you see, he walks across the barbecue and melts, and just before his hand disappears, he does the T2 like thumbs up.
It was fun. It was fun. It was a good one. It was a good movie.
I can't wait to see it again.
You should totally see it. I want to see it again also. It's definitely a theater movie too. Like, you want to see it in a theater. Want to see it in a theater.
I wouldn't wanted to have waited until next summer. It should have been a summer movie though.
It definitely
really had that big budget, and I hope
it did.
Going forward, when another one comes out, they do it in the summertime.
That would be awesome if they did.
And it was... Sorry, I said big budget, and when I say that, I meant more like just a big production. Like, this is a big popcorn summertime blockbuster film. The budget was fairly modest for, you know, as far as movies go. I think 75 million.
That's pretty good.
To make it. And of this filming right now, they're already at, I think, 116 million. And so I'm pretty sure we're getting a sequel. Pretty sure.
It was awesome. It was so good. You guys need to see it. Need to watch it. We'd love your thoughts, but it was excellent.
And here's the plan. Nobody else really knows this yet. Well, Ryder knows this, but I'm going to see Ryder. I'm thinking about taking you guys with.
Oh, Yes, we have to see that.
But Ryder and I are gonna. I'm flying to Missouri to see Ryder so we can go see Ghostbusters together in the theater. Because that just needs to happen.
That would be so much fun.
He hasn't seen it yet. I told him I'm being a hypocritical dad right now, and that I'm gonna see it.
His reaction will be the best. His reaction.
And you're not. Best. You got to wait until I get there to see it. So as far as I know,
his reaction will be the best too.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Gosh, man, I could talk about this movie for the rest of the night, but I think I should be done now.
Sufficient, you think? Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll think of other things that I should have said, or oh yeah, that's right, man. What about this? But I think we've talked enough for now.
Maybe it can be 2.0.
Yeah, the review 2.0.
Yeah, we should. We should see if we can pick out some more Easter eggs.
We'll do.
If we miss some stuff, let us know.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
I'm really curious to know what everybody else thinks now too. That we've got the whole.
It was super enjoyable. It was action. It was fun. It was great dialogue. There was good drama. It was funny. I think all the umami of movies was there, man. It was there. All the senses.
Yeah.
So good.
And I think, I don't know if you want to wait this long, but I think the closer we get to Christmas, like either the week before or week between Christmas and New Year's, we should get like a group of friends together and go. I feel like that would be a good festive, fun.
What a great way to end the year.
That's right.
I agree.
That's right.
I totally agree, bro. Totally agree.
Well, hey, appreciate you guys hanging out with us and listening to us ramble on about Ghostbusters Afterlife. And yeah, I hope everyone else enjoyed it as much as we did, because
I don't know about that.
It was meant to be enjoyed.
Can they enjoy it as much as we did? Probably.
Maybe.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost.
And we've still got our Ectomobile project out there we're working on too. So we didn't, I'd mentioned before, we didn't get it done in time. But it's fine that we didn't. I keep reminding myself of that.
Exactly.
Because there's going to be another Ghostbusters movie we can drive it to, and the car is going to be done right mechanically now too. So
it's going to be perfection.
That's right. All right, enough talking. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. And until next time, don't be afraid of no ghost.
I ain't afraid of no ghost. You filthy animals.
See ya. Good stuff, man. I love it.
You know, sir, it's Cousin Ryan on the Hollywood Boulevard. You know, sir, he bigger than any superstar. Oliver Smith is some real dope bar. Some them sweeter than any chocolate bar. Boom! Hey.